To the Lawndale City Council. I'm going to bring this meeting of Lawndale City Council to order. It is now 6:30. I'm going to ask the Assistant City Clerk to give us the roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Suarez.
Here.
Councilmember Osborne.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Kearney.
Here.
Mayor Pullen Miles.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, sir. Next on our item will be a Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Suarez.
Does everyone have their flag in front of them?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem, for the flag salute. Pledge of allegiance, I should say. Next item on the agenda is presentation. Tonight we are honored to be joined by our Honorable Senator Stephen Bradford, representing the city of Lawndale and Sacramento. He's going to give a legislative update, as he always do around about this time of year, and we're going to welcome him to the podium, the Honorable Senator Stephen Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. It's truly an honor to come before you to present, as you well know, my annual legislative update, something that I have started since I was in the Assembly representing Lawndale, and I've continued now as a member of the Senate. So I'm just honored to, again, have Lawndale as part of not only my previous Assembly district, but also my Senate district, the 35th Senate district. As you know, as a very diverse district, probably one of the most diverse districts in the state of California. And so I'm going to bring you my update. And I think we all agree this year has probably been the most challenging year we've all faced, whether you're on the local, state, or federal level as elected officials, as we have dealt with COVID-19 and the impact that it's had on all aspects of governing and just society as a whole. And I know we've all worked hard, again, on the local, state, and federal level to try to address the impacts of COVID-19. And what I'm going to provide is some of the things that the state has done. First and foremost, we were able to, despite the challenges, to pass an on-time budget with no cuts, no tax increases. It did require us to cut into our $54 billion reserves and our rainy day funds that we had started under former Governor Jerry Brown and has continued under current Governor Newsom, I should say. And, you know, we have many challenges, but as a whole, the state has been resilient and responding to this crisis. And again, we've passed an on-time budget that we all should be proud of that can impact any of the needed programs that we have been funding over the last 8 to 10 years since we've gotten out of the last financial crisis in 2008, 2009. And we will continue to work in partnership with our local elected officials because without your partnership, none of this is possible. Again, COVID-19 has impacted our legislative year. It was a truncated legislative year. And we were all asked to reduce our bill package. At the beginning of the year, I had introduced 20 measures that were making its way through the legislative cycle. But when we returned in May, we were asked to cut our bill package and primarily focus on those that legislation that is COVID-related, directly would help the pandemic. And during that period of time, also, I was appointed as the co-chair of the Economic Recovery Task Force. Me and Senator Bob Hertzberg served in that capacity, along with 10 other members of the Senate, to serve on the Economic Recovery Task Force. And much of the legislation that went forward was kind of like birthed out of that task force. So how do we best help people at this time? And I'm proud of many of the proposals that came through. One that was most important was our renter and landlord protection legislation. I introduced that in May, but again, due to asking everybody to truncate that, we switched it from a Senate bill to an Assembly bill, so we could all work on it in a collaborative manner. And it was AB 3088, and that's the tenant landlord protection. It protects tenants from being evicted if their income has been impacted by COVID all the way up to February of next year. But it requires that tenant to make a good faith effort of paying at least 25% of the due rent. And this is important. And they have to sign under penalty of perjury that their income has been impacted by COVID. But also we want to protect the landlords because, as you well know, many of the landlords in Lawndale and throughout the 35th Senate District or even the state of California aren't these multi-million-dollar conglomerates. They're working mom-and-pop homeowners who have invested well. Many of them are frontline workers, our school teachers, our bus drivers, our mail carriers who were fortunate enough or are smart enough or financially savvy to invest in a piece of property, and it's a duplex, it's a triplex, it might be a fourplex, and this is not how they're getting rich, it's how they are surviving. It's their college tuition for their kids, it's their retirement. So we want to make sure we protect the landlords, because if the landlords are foreclosed on, then everybody loses out. So it was a well-balanced approach to protect both the landlord and tenant. It's still much work to be done, but we will continue to work because, again, the relief extends to the first of the year. And, again, we don't want this to be viewed as a handout for anybody, but a hand up. We were trying to provide assistance. Again, tenants facing hardships to protect them from evictions, and outstanding rent through the end of August. And it was converted into a consumer debt, and it's not a basis for eviction as well. So that was one of the major pieces. Another piece that I was happy to be a part of was SB 1447, the Small Business Tax Credit. And the governor signed that last month. This bill allows small businesses who have lost 50% of their income due to COVID to get a tax credit. There's $100 million for small business, and it's a hiring tax credit, and it affords all those businesses after July 1 of this year who either hired new or rehired any of their employees $1,000 tax credit for each employee that they either hired or rehired. So, because we heard, as well as many of you guys, our small businesses were impacted greatly and still are. So, and it's for any business that's lost over 50% of their gross receipts or revenue over the second quarter of this year. And this is in effect until the first part of next year, and you have up until December 1st for a small business to qualify for that tax credit. And if you need any assistance in doing so, I ask you, the businesses, to contact my office, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through that process as we get closer to December 1st, when you can start applying for that tax credit. Next is SB 1157, which was the reporting, credit reporting for lower income households. This is the first in its nation. As we all know, if you're a renter and you pay your rent on time, you see very little benefit to your credit score. But if you're a renter and you pay late, you're quickly dinged many times by your landlord. They report you as a late, and you have that on your credit score. So this is the first time in the first initiative in the country where if you live in subsidized housing and you pay your rent on time on a monthly basis, we're asking the landlords, it's a volunteer program, both for the tenant and the landlord to participate, or they will report you to a credit bureau, so you'll help you build credit, because we all know the best way out of poverty is to have good credit. The best way to home ownership is having good credit. So that's what this measure does. Next, I will quickly highlight SB 203, which is our juvenile interrogation piece of legislation. This legislation now requires any juvenile under the age of 18 who is arrested, before they can be interrogated, before they can waive their Miranda rights, they have to first consult an attorney or an adult. And we all know, how confessions, I should say, can be coerced by adults, whether you're law enforcement or not, to get young folks to say something that they didn't do. Prime example was the Central Park Five over 20 years ago, when those 5 young men admitted to a crime that they didn't commit, and they spent almost 2 decades in prison until they were exonerated and set free. And it's vitally important that our young folks have access to an attorney or an adult before they waive their Miranda rights, because we as adults, many adults don't know what it means to waive their Miranda rights. So the last thing we want is our juveniles to be taken advantage of by law enforcement. Our next bill is SB 1244. It's the Cannabis Testing and Consumer Safety piece of legislation. And regardless of where you fall on cannabis, we want to make sure that the product is safe. So this is a bill that was sponsored by City Attorney Mike Fuhr, and it requires every product, whether it's for medicinal use or for adult use, to be tested by a laboratory. So it allows us to use any of the licensed testing laboratories to make sure that that product, again, whether it's for medicinal use or adult use, is safe and reliable, and that's the best way to keep a community safe, but also kind of like in the underground market that it clearly exists out there. So in order for it to be sold, it has to be tested. Next is SB 1192, the Benefit and Relief Association for our police and firefighters, making sure that they get the benefits that they deserve if they're disabled or face long-time disability. This measure was supported by the Department of Insurance, our insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara. Many times our men and women who are police officers and firefighters are injured on the job, and even though they have insurance, sometimes they're not afforded the full benefit. So this makes sure that they have enhanced benefits and enhanced transparency and know exactly what they are entitled to if, in fact, they're injured on the job. And last, I said I reduced my bill package down from 20 bills down to 7. Of those 7, 6 got to the governor's desk and was signed, those 6 that I just went over. There was one that did not make the governor's desk, and that was SB 731 due to some last-minute running out of the clock, and that's our police decertification bill. And California is one of 5 states in the nation that doesn't have a decertification process for bad officers, not for good officers, for bad officers. And all law enforcement will agree that there are bad officers that exist in law enforcement. Just like we know it's bad teachers or bad elected officials or bad doctors or bad lawyers, we have to admit to the fact that there are bad public safety officers. And this SB 731, which is better known as the Kenneth Frost Jr. bill, named after a young man who was shot and killed in the city of Gardena 2 years ago, will provide what 45 other states have, a method of decertifying those officers who have been found guilty of committing a felony, whether it's deadly force unnecessarily, whether it's forging of evidence, tampering with evidence, whether it's sexual harassment, whether it's any kind of crime. We have to have a process, a fair and transparent process, which will exist to decertify that officer. So that's what we did in a nutshell. That we're having a look forward to getting back to work in early January, go back and reintroduce that measure. So I will stop there, and if there's any questions about the mayor and council, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Senator, I want to first thank you for your legislative report. You mentioned that you had to reduce your bills down to 7, and I want to just congratulate you on getting 6 out of 7 bills on pass. That's almost 100%. And no doubt, had time not ran out, you would have got that 7 bill passed, because it's definitely worthy of passage. But in particular, I just want to thank you for the renter's credit bill. Forgive me, I didn't write down the number of the bill, but that bill is important. I mean, you did mention that's a voluntary program. I would hope at some point it's not as voluntary, because certainly when landlord reports late rent, it's not a program that the landlord have to opt into. They automatically do it or what have you. And so
Exactly.
I think to make it equitable, equal, it should be pretty much the same. Like if you're free to deem my credit, you should have the same obligation to report when I'm making good on my credit in terms of renters. But that's a very good bill. So thank you for that bill. And also, as a member of the South Bay, of the Cincinnati Youth Services, as you know, we are charged with juvenile justice and restorative justice, and so this bill is a great bill in terms of making sure that juveniles don't waive their Miranda rights, because we see that happen all too often in various communities where the child is so nervous that he or she don't know the rights that they have and that the protections they have even as a juvenile, and they're intimidated a lot of times, and they do waive those rights. And some of this comes from watching television, where you see on television where they are interrogating juveniles without the presence of their family or an attorney. And so in real life, when a juvenile come in contact with the police, they assume that that's the protocol, and don't know that they have rights and protections. So I want to thank you for that bill, because that's a very important bill for our community. And with that, I'll yield to see if anyone else have anything they would like to add.
Yeah, Robert. This is Jim. Hey, Steve. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Steve, you still there?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for the report. I don't want to really use up any of the council time tonight, but I do have a question for you regarding COVID and seniors. Would you be free tomorrow for a phone call? Just a quick question on it.
I'm going to get on a flight tomorrow and go home. I should be free after 2 o'clock.
In the late afternoon, then.
Is that too late for you?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to use council time on it.
Yeah.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
Yeah. Anytime after 2, I should be home.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the senator's report?
No questions, Senator. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you, Senator, once again for your legislative report, and thank you for giving us this report every year after the legislative session has ended. We really appreciate all that you're doing for us in Sacramento and all that you have done for us.
And I appreciate representing the city of Lawndale, and working with all of my mayors and city council. And I appreciate the work that you guys are doing, because we couldn't do it without you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Next on our agenda, we will move to our public safety report. Let's hear from Captain Allen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members. Here tonight to present the public safety report for October 5th through October 18th. As we continue into the fall season, I want to remind our citizens to continue to be diligent in their efforts to protect themselves and their fellow citizens in regards to COVID-19. It is much appreciated. In regards to crime, the city's overall crime rate remains low. We continue to see a decrease in burglaries, robberies, as well as grand theft autos, which are down from previous highs. Assaults have increased slightly due to domestic violence and some gang activity. Larcenies have increased slightly due to an increase in shopliftings. Speaking of gang activity, unfortunately, we did have a gang homicide in September. However, the suspect in that homicide has been arrested. We have also had a slight increase in gang shootings in the city, but the Sheriff's Department is committed to removing illegal guns and the persons who use them off of your streets. For example, on October 9th at 10 p.m., Deputy Hill conducted a traffic stop at Rosecrans Avenue and Hawthorne Boulevard for tinted windows and no front license plate. It was also determined the driver had an outstanding warrant for $26,000 and was driving on a suspended driver's license. A search of his vehicle revealed a loaded 9mm pistol and additional 9mm and .357 caliber ammunition. In addition, a search of the driver's history revealed he was an ex-felon. Due to the above, the driver was placed under arrest, transported, and booked at South Los Angeles Station for ex-felon in possession of a firearm and ex-felon in possession of ammunition. On October 11th, early in the morning, Deputy Hill observed a vehicle which was parked crooked near Hawthorne Boulevard and 162nd Street. He stopped to conduct a welfare check on the driver, who appeared to be sleeping behind the wheel. He inquired if the driver had any weapons in the vehicle. The driver replied yes, or guns. The driver was detained pending a weapons investigation. Deputy Hill recovered one loaded pistol and three which were unloaded, including a large quantity of ammunition. It was determined only one weapon was registered to the driver. Due to the above, the driver was placed under arrest and transported and booked at South Los Angeles Station for possession of a loaded firearm not registered to the owner. On October 12th, about 9 a.m., Deputy Parga conducted a traffic stop near Rosecrans and Prairie Avenue for tinted windows, no front license plate, and straddling lanes of traffic. After contacting the driver admitted to possessing a handgun and methamphetamine. The driver was detained pending a weapons/narcotics investigation. Deputy Parga later recovered a loaded firearm, a loaded high-capacity magazine, and methamphetamine. It was also determined that the driver was driving a stolen vehicle. Due to the above, the driver was placed under arrest, transported, and booked at South Los Angeles Station for ex-felon in possession of a firearm, possession of a high-capacity magazine, possession of a firearm not the registered owner, possession of a controlled substance with a firearm, receiving stolen property, and driving a vehicle without owner's consent. These are just a few examples of proactive Lawndale deputies putting their lives on the line to ensure the citizens of Lawndale stay safe and free from gun violence. This concludes my report, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Captain, for that report. Is there any questions of the Captain?
Yeah.
Report?
Thank you, Captain, for the report, and I was glad to hear that the deputies were doing stops on the tinted window thing, because that was something we brought up, a year or two ago. I love to hear they're being proactive on that. And secondly, I just want to pass on some thanks and kudos to Sergeant Nitz, who helped last week with a transient issue in the city. He was a big help with that, so just passing on my appreciation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? So, thank you, Captain, for this report, and we just thank you for the proactive law enforcement as you displayed your deputies have engaged in. As you can tell, it has really paid off, and we really appreciate all the effort and the hard work of your deputies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, with that, we will move our agenda to oral communications. Let's hear from the Assistant City Clerk. Is there any oral communications to hear about?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have two public comments, and I'll go ahead and read them verbatim. The first one is Pam London, Lawndale resident. No matter your party, your beliefs, your convictions, vote. You never know when that one vote is the decision maker. For those of you who have not figured it out, Mr. Osborne is not running for re-election. It has been too many years of men making decisions in Lawndale. Let's see if the ladies can take this city into new territory. If you don't like the way it has been, vote for real change. Out with the old and in with the new. Give the girls a chance. In the past, council decided that municipal services should monitor real estate listings for code violations, unpermitted remodels, additions, and garage conversions. At the time, council agreed this would be wise to implement. Is this not happening? If not, why? If council backed off, why? On average, there are 25 or less listings for sale in the city. That number or less for rent. This should not be difficult or time-consuming. It is past time that Lawndale enforce the codes that are on the books. Second public comment, Justine Torres, LESD employee. Good evening, City Council members. I wanted to take a few moments of your time to introduce myself. I'm sad I cannot meet everyone in person, face-to-face, but this will have to do for now. My name is Justine Torres. I'm an employee of LESD within this SPED department. I have worked in a few other capacities for the last several years. I'm currently the president of the Lawndale Council PTA for the 2021 school year. On behalf of all of our PTAs, I would like to thank you for all your support and everything you do for our community. As we are currently trying to work our programs for the school year, we look forward to your continued support and hope that we can all work together through these unprecedented times. Please join any or all of our PTAs at your convenience through the website, or you can contact me to receive a paper envelope to join, as this will help us continue to advocate for our children and their futures. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding PTA and any of our schools, I'm available to discuss. Many thanks to Stream Torres. And that ends public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the public. Let's see if there's any comments from the council.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Jim.
Osborne, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you. Since I was mentioned in the first comments, I wanted to speak on that. But I realize Ms. London has not lived in the city that long, so she doesn't know a lot of the city's past electeds and its history. But there's been numerous females on the council over the years. And in fact, the first elected mayor of the city of Lawndale was female. The lady who retired, whose seat I filled, was female. There was a female even running when I ran. But that being said, it shouldn't be based on gender, just like it shouldn't be based on race. It's up to the voters. It's not up to one individual's preference for a certain makeup on the council. It's strictly up to the voters. They can decide for an all-female council, for example, if they so choose. Or all male or mixture, anything they want. Not dictated. And that's all I wanted to say. Oh, I will have later comments at the conclusion of the meeting regarding my decision not to run, and I'll read that at the end. It's interesting. Okay, that's all.
All right. Okay, let's hear from Reed.
Yeah, I'd say enough said on that one, and welcome, Mr. Torres. We appreciate it.
Excellent. Let's hear from Kearney.
I have nothing. Thank you.
You have nothing? Okay. And let's hear from Troy.
I just wanted to say yes. Please do go out and vote. They've changed the rules, so however you feel safest. But please do manage to get your vote out. And I hear it's unprecedented numbers so far, so this is a pretty exciting time to be around.
Thank you, madam. And I want to say also welcome to the PTA, and we'll take a look at the joining the PTA, being involved in the PTA. So thank you, Torres, for bringing that to our attention. And that's all I have. So with that, I'm going to close all communications and comments from the council. I'm going to move it to the consent calendar, which is item D. There is one ordinance that needs to be read on this consent calendar.
Mayor, this Councilman Kearney.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question number 7.
Question number 7, okay.
On the
okay, go ahead.
accounts
Go ahead.
Okay. On the accounts payable, I go over it with a fine-tooth comb every time. And there's an item on here that I think brought concern to me. It's for a LA Uniforms and Tailoring, 1 polo shirt and embroidery for almost $71. If we can't, I don't know who this belongs to, I don't care who it is, but if we can't get our staff t-shirts, I don't think anybody should get shirts. And it's $71 we didn't need to spend. And that's my concern. And that's it on 7.
Okay, that's all you have on 7. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, with that being the case, what is the pleasure of this body concerning?
Again, Mayor, this is Councilman Kearney.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent as written.
This is Pro Tem Suarez, and I'll second.
Okay. I had a little interference there, but it sounded like it was a motion by Pat Kearney that we approve the consent calendar and seconded by Torres.
Correct.
That being the case, is there any discussion on the motion? And now I'm going to ask the council to vote and ask the assistant city clerk to conduct the roll call.
Mr. Mayor, did you want me to read that ordinance real quick?
Absolutely.
Very good. This is ordinance number 1177-20, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lawndale, California, amending certain sections in Title 17 zoning of the Lawndale Municipal Code regarding accessory dwelling units and finding of exemption from CEQA. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. With that being the case, there is a motion on the floor. I'm going to ask the Assistant City Clerk to conduct the vote.
Are you for the consent calendar, Mayor Pro Tem Suarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Osborne,
Yes.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Councilmember Kearney,
Yes.
Mayor Colin Miles.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, next item on our agenda is item 9 under administration regarding the regional housing needs assessment. Let's have the staff report, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council and the public. Tonight, you have for consideration, staff's asking the City Council to direct staff to file an appeal with HCD, the Community Development and Housing Department with the State of California, as well as the Southern California Association of Governments, known as SCAG. As this item's never been before you, that I based on research and talking with staff and looking in our files, the City of Lawndale has never challenged directly or appealed our RHNA numbers. And RHNA numbers are a regional housing needs assessment. And basically, the state, every housing cycle, assesses a projected needs of housing for a region. So Southern California Association of Governments gets a region that covers Los Angeles and several other counties, including San Bernardino, Riverside, not San Diego, and Ventura, and the inland areas, including Imperial counties, and they determine the number of housing units needed to address housing shortages, essentially. And so every housing cycle, we're assigned a number, a numerical number. Last housing cycle, on the 5th housing cycle that was adopted a few years back in 2014 by the City Council, our RHNA was around 390 plus units. However, this time, as the state has, you've heard folks in the recent legislation, and even the senator the state senator just spoke, housing's on the governor's and the legislature's agenda. And so they're really pushing hard on the numbers for the projection and the allocations in cities and counties and the region. And that brings me to our 6th housing element, which we're working on. SCAG developed a profile and a methodology, as they call it, for the final RHNA. SCAG's adopted it, the regional council adopted it, and the regional council voted to approve the methodology, the final methodology they call it, on November 7, 2019. And then SCAG utilized 3 key elements to come up with the numbers for the region. And it basically entails existing needs, projected needs, and income categories pertaining to housing. On September 4th, as I mentioned, the RHNA numbers were adopted by the board, and the region was assigned approximately 1,341,827 units. It's shown in your staff report on page 2, and that numbers are really high. They're a lot higher this time around for the 6th housing element. For Lawndale, our regional numbers came back, and for the 6th housing element, it includes very low income units, 730, low income units, 310, moderate income units, 370, and above moderate income units, 1,081. So Lawndale, our regional housing needs allocation is 2,491 units broken down into the categories I mentioned. It's quite a significant jump. It's 6 times the amount of numbers that we received previous housing cycles based on staff's review of the past numbers. Staff has looked around at what other cities have been commenting on the allocation. It was a very contentious process. One of the council members, Councilman Osborne, was familiar with the process. And I think Councilwoman Bernadette Suarez was involved and is aware of what the SCAG's board took action on, and now we are looking at filing an appeal to those numbers. Other jurisdictions are also looking at filing an appeal. The cities of Pasadena, Culver City, and Laguna Beach are all that we've looked up and researched are filing appeals regarding the RHNA. There's other cities too, the city of Cerritos. There's going to be a lot more cities. The deadline's fast approaching. We have to get the application in with the materials that are attached to the staff report. And basically, we're surmising the appeal based on the failed methodology, as well as not including and as well as violation of the Brown Act, and not taking action and not allowing cities to comment on it. And we have the attached letter as attached to the staff report where we outline those concerns and requirements. The city attorney's office, we work closely with our city attorney's office on drafting the staff report as well as our appeal letter and the attachments that we'll file if council decides to move forward with the appeal. And staff doesn't anticipate any impact associated with this directly from the staff appeal. Therefore, staff recommends approval, directing staff to file an appeal on the RHNA, challenging the city's allocation of 2,491 units. This concludes staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that staff report. Is there any questions on the staff report?
Jim, and not so much a question, but a comment. Everything Sean has said is absolutely correct. And this is something else that the state has imposed upon us, and it's basically unachievable the way it's currently created, not just for Lawndale, but for every city. I mean, these are all cities that are built out, and really it was a bit of a, lack of a better term, kind of a shell game that Los Angeles did. They took the numbers that were originally allocated for the inland cities and shifted them over to the South Bay cities. And even though we all opposed it, they kind of stacked the deck, so to speak, when it came time for the vote. And so, sad to say, but it is what it is. I hate that expression for this because this is just going to cause more congestion, already congested community. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comments?
This is Mayor Pro Tem Suarez, and I just wanted to kind of echo that sentiment as well. I think it's incredible when you look at the chart of the numbers, how Lawndale, being as small as we are, and neighboring cities who are more than twice our size, have less numbers expected. So they definitely didn't take into account square footage. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I think we got penalized for being next to the aerospace industry, because what I was told is one of the what they were trying to accomplish, one of the goals they were trying to accomplish is to provide housing next to certain sectors, one of which being the aerospace industry. And although we're not necessarily an aerospace town, we no doubt, next to SpaceX as well as Norfolk Grumman and Redondo Beach. I think they just hear a Lawndale zip code. So I think we've been kind of penalized because we're close to aerospace under the thought that there'll be a housing for folks in that sector. And that's unfortunate for a city small as Lawndale to be burdened with these types of numbers. Anyone else have anything they want to add to that?
This is Councilman Reed. So, this is the only way we could even possibly come close to these numbers is tear down all these single-family residences in town and start building low-income housing, which is not feasible. I mean, for built out, we definitely need to go back for that. With that said, I'd like a motion to approve.
Okay, the motion is made by Reed that we approve the staff recommendation to file an appeal.
Mayor, this is Councilman Kearney. I'll second it.
And Councilman Kearney has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the Assistant City Clerk to conduct the vote.
Thank you. For item 9, Mayor Pro Tem Suarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Osborne.
Yes.
Councilmember Reed.
Yes.
Councilmember Kearney.
Yes.
Mayor Pullen Miles.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda will be item 10, concerning award of a construction contract. Let's have the staff read.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is Kevin Chun, City Manager. Before we move into the report from the Public Works Department, I just wanted to take this opportunity to publicly introduce Ms. Leah Reese, who's with the engineering firm of KOA. And Leah will be serving as the city's Director of Public Works and City Engineer temporarily. As you may know, she has replaced Kahona Wee, who we were sad to see leave last week in his similar role. Ms. Reese, she started with the city last week, and she'll be working on a part-time basis temporarily for us through the end of the year, or until we can find a permanent replacement for the director and city engineer position. So with that, I'd like to welcome Leah, and without further ado, I'd like to have her move forward with the staff report.
Okay,
Hey, good
welcome,
evening,
Leah.
everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for welcoming me, and I'm excited to work for Lawndale. So with that, I'll move into item number 10. So number 10 is in regards to the 2019-20 annual street improvement project. This project consists of the repair of deteriorated pavement, damaged and lifted sidewalk, driveway approaches, curbs and gutters, curb ramps, and striping. The sidewalk and curb and gutters and curb ramps are for ADA compliance. The locations include 147th from Hawthorne to Prairie, and this will allocate CDBG funds for that section. And it also includes Freeman and 153rd from Marine to 154th, Grevillea and 159th Street down to 166. And those two areas will allocate SB1 and RMRA funds. Out of 5 bidders, Sequel Contractors came in first with the lowest bid of $1,267,820. So it is the recommendation to award a contract to Sequel Contractors for this amount, plus a 15% contingency to cover unforeseen field conditions. So that covers it. If there's any questions, I'm here.
Yeah, quick question. You said the 15% contingency,
Correct.
and we usually have a 10%, or is that normal? It's a little higher.
I was
Mr.
not...
Mayor, this is Tiffany Israel. If I could help,
Go
since
ahead.
she's new. We generally have 10, but sometimes we have as much as 20. It depends on the project. So it's
Okay,
not
got it.
unusual that this is 15. It's in the middle.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody have any questions on the
Mayor, this is
report?
Councilman McCurney.
Yes, sir.
I have one question. I know it's not for Leah, but maybe Kevin. On this report, is there anything left out? Why I bring that up? Because our last report on Inglewood Avenue project, we awarded the contract to Sean N. And that name stuck out with me in my mind. So I did some research and I contacted a former city council member, and maybe Tiffany can chime in if I need be. We had a lawsuit against them on the Hawthorne Boulevard project for prevailing wages. The trees were the wrong trees, and we had sidewalks and street repair issues with them. Why wasn't that in our last report? So that's why I'm asking about this report. Is everything in it? Because the lawsuit should have been in that last report before we awarded to Sean N. We might have had second thoughts about giving this contract to him. So who wants to handle it?
Sound like a
I'll
question.
start, and Tiffany, if you have any further information, you can surely chime in if you'd like. Regarding this report, I don't know of any previous concerns that we've had with this contractor. I've gone over this item with Kahono and with Leah, and my understanding is that our bidding process was as normal, and we received bids from the 5 companies. Beyond that, Sequel was the lowest bidder, and we also checked references, and the references were good. And so on that basis, that's why we are recommending Sequel.
Okay. So my question to you, Kevin, did you know about the lawsuit that we had when they did Hawthorne Boulevard project?
No, that was before my time. I don't have any details on that.
I believe, Tiffany, you want to chime in? I think the city attorney brought that up to our former interim public works director, and he said he was okay with it.
Yes, Pat, this is Tiffany. I'll respond to that. I did mention to Kahono at the time that the history with Seanan, just so that he was aware of it. But we did talk also about the fact that that lawsuit was settled 17 years ago, and so that alone would not be legally sufficient to kick the lowest responsible bidder. And all of the recent references that we had for Seanan were solid. So if council had rejected Seanan, that would have been a big problem. They would have sued us.
Okay, your legal answer. Do you think that lawsuit should have been mentioned in the report?
I mean, I don't think it was relevant to the decision, and it could have been added, but it could have caused problems, because if the council decided to kick them because of that, then that would have been a problem. A court would not hold up kicking someone because they had problems 17 years ago on a project.
Granted that, but we could have won with the next lowest bidder too, correct?
No, if you kick them out, it would be to go with the next lowest bidder, but they would, I mean, on a project of that dollar value, they definitely would have sued us over that, and we would likely lose.
Okay, well, I don't know how the rest of the council, but I think if we're gonna be transparent, everything should be in our staff reports. Everything. And with that, Robert, I'll turn over to you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Let's see. Okay, so that's item number 10. Is there any further discussion on item number 10? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion on 10.
Councilman Kearney, I'll make a motion to go to staff report.
Okay, so the motion is made by Councilman Kearney to approve the staff report on item 10, and
This is Councilman Reed. No, go ahead.
Oh, either way.
that sounds like Bernadette. She had a deep voice for a moment there, but I think it was Bernadette. Seconded. So motion been made by Kearney and seconded by Torres. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Assistant City Clerk, please conduct the vote.
For item number 10, Mayor Pro Tem Suarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Osborne,
Yes.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Councilmember Kearney,
Yes.
Mayor Pullen Miles.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, sir. We're now on item 11, the budget update for fiscal year ending June the 30th, 2020. Report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Marla Pendleton, Finance Director. What's presented before you today is basically a summary of our year-end budget for fiscal year 2019-20. It's presented for transparency so that you can see how the year ended compared to the adopted budget, actually the amended budget throughout the year. The report starts out reporting, and I'm not going to go through all the detail because I'm sure you've read it, but if you have any questions through it, please let me know. The report starts out with the general fund. General fund revenue was $608,000 more than expenditures for the fiscal year. Compared to fiscal year 2019, it had an increase of 3.7% in the revenue. The main reason the revenue went up is we had a full year of our district tax measure L, and the reason it wasn't more significant is we also had a land sale that was close to that value during the year, the previous fiscal year. What is recommended for the budget is increasing the revenue for the fiscal year. And just so you know, the reason I have actual budget adjustments in here and the year is ended, so that legally we can say our budget was approved for the amounts that came in. So we're trying to get them closer than that to actual. The budget closer to actual. So what I'm recommending for the general fund are revenue increases for all the items that we had $100,000 or more difference. So on page 3 of your report, I have general fund revenue increases that I'm proposing. Looking at expenditures for the year, we had variances related to unexpended capital projects of $201,000. That was carried forward from the previous fiscal year. However, this coming fiscal year, that is going to be matching funds and we're going to use it. So we are asking for that to be carried forward. We had savings in several general fund departments, and the savings included things like the city manager, the previous city manager retiring, working part-time during the year, and our current city manager coming in mid-year. That was about $100,000 savings. City clerk, it was a position change. Municipal services, some of the money was reallocated to our CARES Act funding. We had savings in sheriff contract, municipal services, the operation side, public works ground, and then a savings in community service crossing guards. As far as overruns, we had a long-term deficit for retiree health benefits. There wasn't an accounting practice in place for many years for our retiree health benefits. It was paid out of a trust fund, but money was not put into it. So to resolve that and clear it up, we have $149,000 that needed to offset that so that we can pay for those past expenses, and now we are budgeting those and making sure that year to year those are actually getting into the appropriate department budgets. We also had some overruns relating to public work projects, and this ties into our capital project funds, most of them being Metro, where we can only have a certain amount of indirect costs for them. Where we exceeded those and charged them during the year based on actual charges, we had to charge those back to the general fund so that we did not exceed the cap on our general fund on our, indirect costs. We also have a general fund support charge during the year, and that makes up the majority of our general fund expenditure variances. I've got all sorts of miscellaneous information in this report, trying to be transparent. Part of it has to do with general fund support overrun. The support overrun, for the most part, has to do with our community service department. We had to transfer another $129,000 over to that budget to make it balanced for the year. Reason for that being a couple of things. One is a lot of the revenue with programs being cut because of COVID, a lot of the money that was taken in for classes and for various events and for facility rentals were refunded during the year. So that left some deficit. And then we also paid employees for time not worked until the end of the year. And some of that was a little bit beyond budget. So that incurred an additional 130,000 from the general fund to support that function. So the total cost were 1,094,000 going to community services to offset the deficit in that particular fund. In the general fund, in addition to the capital projects, the 201,000 being carried forward, we also have amounts for discretionary funds and for ongoing contracts that are multi-year or that were basically entered into by the end of the year and they cross over to the next fiscal year. What is recommended is about 133,000 to be carried forward into fiscal year 2021 for those projects and for that discretionary. There's also the budget adjustment for our retiree health benefits of 172. Actually, the charge that was in the other one was net, but the retiree health benefits was 172,000. Looking at our overall non-general fund departments, we can see there's a chart on page 9 that shows our beginning fund balance, how much revenue came in, expenses, our ending fund balance. These funds are primarily restricted funds, meaning that the money is for very specific restricted purposes and they're segregated from the general fund to ensure that we meet those restrictions. 3 of those funds at the end of the year had negative balances. However, the money is based on reimbursements and we are anticipating it coming in fiscal year 2021. So that will balance all of those out. Most of our non-general fund departments, as I mentioned, under the general fund, the reason we had variances at the end of the year was because of the 20% indirect limit and money had to be transferred over because the direct was lower than what we had actually charged to those funds. So we transferred those amounts over to the general fund. I already talked about community services. If we go to page 16 of the report, assuming you have it open, page 16 is money that is going to be carried forward or being requested to be carried forward into the current fiscal year. Some of it was already put in the budget. So what was done is a comparison on the chart on that page of what should be carried forward versus what was already budgeted. And then there's an adjustment that needs to be done. So with that being said, some of the budgets are going to be increased and some of them are going to be decreased, but we're going to adjust them so that the budgets for current year do not exceed the amount of appropriations that are available for those funding sources. And again, most of them are restricted funding sources. So that being said, out of the capital projects, we have 665,000 that we want to increase appropriations for continuing. And then we have 1.3 million approximately that we want to decrease. One of them being the largest one being our Inglewood project phase 3 that's been completed. So that revenue, the project's completed, anything that was there before is no longer available to use. The net decrease for capital project increases is 686,000. We've got several contingencies that we're wanting to increase during the year, of which the individual items were addressed in the report, but just to go over them. For Air Quality Management District, we had 3 vehicles that were budgeted and they were not acquired during the year. We'll recommend 2 of them to be continued into the current fiscal year to be purchased for Public Works. Community development budget for the general plan. That's a multi-year project, so that money needs to be carried forward to complete the general plan. That's 649,000. And then our Measure A funding, what was done uniquely this year, in order for us to track how much is available of the allocation for Measure A, we've actually budgeted the revenue and the expense so that way as projects come up, we can incur those costs for, of course, get the projects approved, but we already have the appropriations for the full amount that is committed to us and the revenue. So this is for 2 years to carry forward the appropriations and the offsetting revenue. There will be a similar adjustment in our first quarter budget update for fiscal year 21 for the amount that we just found out last week is available for the current year. So that will give us 3 years of funding for Measure A that's available for park and recreation facilities. We have 5 years to spend it or lose it, but these are our commitments. So I want to make sure that in our financial records, we are tracking it so that we do not lose the money. I have a section that's called budget cleanup. This is just to make sure that we have budgets where we expended money. And most of these are for capital projects where costs were incurred. We've got SB1, 56,000 was spent. Measure R, 15,000. Corona Relief Fund, that was money that we found out, I believe it was in September, and some of it was for previous year expenses, 146,000 to be exact. So we want to make sure that we have budget authority to spend the CARES Act money and to be able to use fiscal year 19-20 expenses for reimbursement against the revenue that's already come in. We've already got half of the revenue. One is to clean up a recycling grant. The money was budgeted in general fund, but we opened up a new fund to track the recycling program. So that's just to correct the budget into the right fund. And then the final is for our well, actually, it's 2 more. One is for TABS money for the final payoff for the mobile home closure for the land that we sold. There was money that was sitting for relocation and somebody claimed it at the last moment. So we want to make sure the budget is there for that claim. That was 36,000 that was paid at the end of the calendar year. And then the operating transfer increase is the one that I told you about for community services because of their programs basically having to refund facility and class charges. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those, and that's it.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, and thank you for those points of clarification for making it easy to follow. I really appreciate that. Let's see if are there any questions of Marla's report. Anyone have any questions they want to pose?
No questions, Marla. Thank you so much for the transparency.
You're welcome, Dan.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. With that, it was pretty clear. Presentation pretty clear. I have no questions. With that, I will entertain a motion that we receive and file the report.
Mayor's Councilman Kearney, make a motion.
This is Councilman Reed. I'll second it.
The motion's been made by Kearney and seconded by Reed that we see and file. Lost my page, but is there any discussion on the motion?
May I, excuse me, Mayor, this one actually has budget adjustments, so it's not just receive and file, it's actually to approve the budget adjustments as well.
So we receive and file as well as approve the budget adjustment as well.
Thank you.
All righty. With that being the order, unless there's any further discussion, I'm going to ask the city clerk to conduct the vote on item 11.
Thank you for item 11, Mayor Pro Tem Suarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Osborne,
Yes.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Councilmember Kearney,
Yes.
Mayor Cohen Miles.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next item 12. City manager's report. Let's hear from the city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll be very brief with this item. This is an item for the city council to consider cancellation of 3 upcoming city council meetings, one on November 16th, December 21st, and January 4th. And that would be the second meeting in November, the second meeting in December, and the first meeting in January. These meetings are being brought to you for consideration for cancellation, as it's my understanding this has been the city's practice at least over the last couple years. And so we bring this to you for your attention. The staff, we do not believe we have pressing issues that will need to occur on these meetings. If we do have items that do need to be resolved and addressed by the city council, we will make sure to bring those items to you with the remaining meetings we have for the year. So with that, I will end my comments, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you for that report. So what is the pleasure of the body concerning
Mayor, Councilman Kearney?
cancellation? Kearney, go ahead.
I'm okay with December 21st and January 4th, but I still think we should have our meeting November 16th. That's 10 days before Thanksgiving. And, our election is on the 3rd. Our next meeting, November is the 2nd. I think we should have the 16th to announce the unofficial winners of the elections.
Well, we can have the unofficial because it won't be certified by the end.
No,
yes,
but they'll be unofficial, yeah. But I still think we should have the meeting so we know who it is too, and the residents know who it is unofficially, without being certified yet.
Right.
I'm certifiable, but, that's beside that.
Certified. That's right.
You're certifiable, you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay either way. I don't feel strong. I'm either way on it.
I think you guys should meet in January since I'm not there.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that, Jim.
Yeah, I'm okay with December the 21st and January the 4th. The 16th, I can go either way with that. I do have an asterisk by it. I guess that's what I don't know why I had an asterisk, but I put one by it for some reason. What's the thought of the board? What do you say, Reed?
I'd say the 21st and the 4th we can go ahead and cancel, and I agree we should at least have some updated information on the 16th.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Suarez?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And should I ask Osborne?
Doesn't matter to me. You guys could meet every day of the week if you want to. Doesn't matter to me.
You got your backpack, don't you?
Okay, well, let's do it this way. Let's cancel the Monday, December 21st, and Monday, January the 4th. But then let's have a brief meeting for that November whatever that date is.
16th.
Instead of canceling November 16th. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. We will schedule a meeting for Monday, November 16th, and we'll schedule a brief meeting.
Okay, a brief meeting.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so that will be the order. Okay. Is that all you have on your report?
Yes, sir. That's it. Thank you.
That's it. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, next item. Let's hear from council members. Let's hear from Councilmember Osborne.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I have a statement I want to read that I've had this for a number of years. As you all well know, I've lived in this city my whole life, and generational, goes back 4 generations in here. So I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of faces have come and gone, a lot of various elected officials. And I came across this statement years ago in an old issue of the Lawndale. Back then, council members. You could even have your picture in the issue. All that changed, of course, years later. But there was a statement in there that I read from a past mayor. His name was Jim Vigneault, and I'm still in contact with his children. But there's been many mayors and many council members over the years, that have come and gone. And I'll speak more about my departure coming up at the next meeting. But I did want to read this message. Now, this is not to be reflective of anybody, but I just found it interesting because it kind of captured the spirit where I don't believe in staying in office forever. I know that Lawndale's had a history where there's been some individuals and electeds and that's their choice. That's fine. Not for me. And it wasn't for Jim Vigneault either. So he wrote a farewell message here. And let me read this to you. It's brief. After 8 years and nearly 900 meetings representing our town, well, I've got them on another 4 years and a few hundred more meetings. It says, I felt my time had come to leave the political arena and once again become an ordinary citizen. I've seen too many political leaders become addicted to public office. Some transfer the honor of the office to themselves and can't stop the ego trip they're on. In order to get reelected, they begin to shave their judgments. They will do almost anything that's popular rather than what is right. They avoid controversy, gut discussions, and facing up to tough problems. I must prove to myself that I'm not captured by the temptation to continually hold public office and enjoy the acclaim of such an honor. I hope to renew my perspective as an ordinary citizen. Each day on this council has been a little life in itself. My tenure has not been perfect, but thank heavens, nature has blinded me as to my many faults. Not in the laws that I've helped to pass or the parks I've helped with others in building. Do these things mean most, but rather the friends I have made. In their minds and souls, I have found the richness and fullness of these past years. Our city staff has always been a tremendous source of personal pride. They have added the human willingness to help others, cheerfully and with real concern. To you, the people, I give my greatest thanks for the gift of public service. It added color to my days and dimension to my efforts. Lawndale is my hometown. It is an affair of the heart. What is then will be a joy forever. Well, I just think that's
well said.
A nice statement to conclude my time with, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for reading that. I appreciate that. Okay, let's hear from Councilman Reed.
All right. Very well said. Thank you for that. I actually met the man, and it was very, very pleasant to meet. And I did attend the first ever virtual conference from League of California Cities. After a few hits and misses with technology, they got it together and things went pretty well. And had some good topics through there. Much appreciated. That's the only meeting I report.
All right.
Have a happy Halloween.
Let's hear from okay, Councilman Peck-Turner.
And I also attended the League of California Cities. I was a voting delegate, and it was an experience, like Dan said, the Zoom. I'm a computer illiterate, but there is people worse than I am. I'll leave it at that. I'm dead. Thank you.
That's funny. All right, thank you. Pro Tem Torres.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, madam. Okay, our last council meeting in the sanitation district regular meeting, and seemed like I attended something else as well, but didn't write it down. Anyway, okay, that's all I have to report. Sanitation district meeting. With that, we have exhausted our agenda tonight. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Lawndale City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, November the 2nd. Right. It is now 7:44, and this meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.